It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. I'm Pete Francis, joined by Willie Witten. Today, our guest is one of the most well-respected guitar players out there, Josh Smith. Josh, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks for asking. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So with everything that's been going on around the last year or so, one of the common themes for artists has been kind of adapting and pivoting and changing. It seems like you've done a really good job of that. You're doing a lot of different stuff that's not necessarily obviously going out and gigging. Can you kind of go into that and let us know some of the things that you've been up to?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's kind of tried to find new, interesting ways, not just to make income, but to keep themselves busy and keep themselves with a positive mindset, which is actually harder than you think it is. It's like a choice to stay positive and you know, because we're used to being out there playing gigs. That's what we want to be doing, improvising, playing music, and that's been just taken away from us. So it's like I've been lucky to have the studio and to have production work be ongoing kind of all during the last year. But in addition to that, I kind of made a decision to spend some time on my YouTube channel, which is something I'd never done before. And that kind of pushed me down a new rabbit hole of like creating videos, started to put more cameras into the studio to be able to pull off different things here. I learned a lot of new technical things that I never had interest in as far as cameras and internet streaming and those types of things go. And so that's kept me busy, and I feel like it's connected me with an audience in a new way. I think people are finding me who maybe didn't know me before, which is cool. And it's kept me busy. And like I said, it's kept me kind of positive and engaged, which I really actually needed.
Yeah, talking about staying engaged, you've been doing that. You started up your own show live from Flat V. What's that been like, kind of getting to connect with all these different artists during this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. You know, everybody I've interviewed so far are all actual like personal friends. I haven't reached out to anybody I don't know yet. There hasn't been any cold calls of, you know, let me reach out to this guy and see if I can interview him or this or that. And it's been nice to hear everybody's story. It's been nice to see people enjoy them and the reaction, and you know, just see a real casual conversation between two professional musicians, hear their stories, hear where they relate, where things differ. It's been really enjoyable getting to know my friends on a deeper level, which is kind of nice.
You know, I want to touch on something you said right off the bat about the mental aspect of this, because like Pete said, we've been talking a lot about change. When you're in a live setting, there's the crowd, there's the people, there's the band members, there's a routine, the energy is there. I think what we don't really talk about a lot is how do you get that mindset when you're doing something from studio where maybe that natural energy isn't there? What are your tricks for you to get in the right music groove to make that magic happen?
There isn't any tricks for that, unfortunately. That's been really weird, and it's like that's a muscle that is atrophying. I can feel it happening right now. You know, it's like the handful of times in the last year where I've gotten together with the guys or with other musicians and played. Like I've done a couple live stream concerts from here at the studio because I'm set up for that. So we did ticketed events where we sold tickets, played a gig, treated it like a gig, and it felt the most alien and foreign anything could ever feel, because we're just not exercising that muscle. And I'm playing guitar as much as I ever have. I'm playing every day, working on stuff. I have projects to do. I'm practicing, which is nice, but it's not the same as that feeling of being at the gig. You know, I'm never sitting here on the couch motioning to people, let's break it down, you know, and getting all in my feelings, you know, and getting emotional. That's gone, you know. So it's tough not having that part of, you know, the whole deal available to you, and there's no simulation for it.
You talk about doing a lot on YouTube right now. What's, I guess, the feeling of validation from YouTube and like comments and likes compared to just being at a concert and experiencing that?
It's interesting, you know. We hate to admit it, but as people who are used to playing out in the public and people who release things out into the world that people are always going to comment onto, we crave that interaction, the attention, the reaction. So it's like, yeah, when I post a video now, I'm looking to see the engagement. Do people like it? Do they react to it? I'll make a mental note. Okay, people aren't interested in this subject. Let me pivot to, maybe not do as much of that in the future. YouTube, it's funny, I've been really engaged on Instagram for the last few years, but in a very natural way. I don't ever have a plan. I just post when I feel like posting. I certainly don't ever work on anything. I just, play something, post it up. And that's been very organic. YouTube is completely different. Like, I put thought into the videos, I work on them, so I'm very interested to see what people think. Also on YouTube, the comments are 100 times more than Instagram, and the trolls are like 100 times more than Instagram, which is pretty interesting.
Do you feel like Instagram is the most, I guess you could say, friendly of the social media platforms?
It's the most direct link to the people who really care about what you do. So yeah, in that case, I would say it is the most friendly because, I have 77,000 followers on Instagram or whatever, which is a ton. But it's like most of those people are like actual fans. They're predisposed to like what I do. So normally if I post something, they're all going to like it, and that's a good feeling. And it's a great instant connection to when I need to promote something or just want to talk about something. I have a reach where, hey, like if I was going to put out a single or something, even just like off the cuff, like, hey, tomorrow, surprise, here's a new song. If I just posted it on Instagram, 10,000 of those people would probably buy it that day. That's a great feeling to know that people care and I can reach that amount of people.
Okay, so to pivot a little bit on the feeling and dealing with people, and you've done this for a while, but especially recently, you've gotten into some serious producing. We had Joanna Connor on here a couple weeks ago, 4801 South Indiana Avenue. Eric Gale's coming up. When you produce, do you go into the studio saying, hey, I have this idea for the artist? Or are you someone who says, hey, the artist has an idea and I'm just going to come in as a blank slate and help them get the sound that they want? Because you've been doing a lot of it and the results have been good. What's your approach?
Thank you. It's a little bit of both. Certainly there's an idea involved from the beginning, at least, in the back of my mind. Also, some of these are in partnership with Joe Bonamassa, so we have conversations together about what we want to accomplish with the record, our goals for the artist, where we'd like to see them in this project. But also, most important is what are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish? What is the material? So with, every one of these projects is a different kind of whole thing on its own, and you have to treat them as such. So yeah, in the last few years, I've done quite a lot of records. I've done 3 together with Joe as co-producers, and I've probably done 10 by myself here at my studio or other studios around LA. And every one is really truly its own thing. But it's mostly about helping the artist reach their goal and then surpass it in a way that they didn't even know was possible. Bringing new ideas to them that they wouldn't have thought of, helping them get where they want to go and find those levels beyond that they weren't even thinking about, making it the best project it can be. That's my favorite part of producing, is kind of trying always to get the best. And I think that's a reason that Joe and I both work very well together. We're both kind of cut from the same cloth in that we're pretty serious individuals. There's not a lot of bullshit from us, not a lot of, joking around or, wasting of time. We like to do the best work we can, work as hard as we can, because that's what we equate with good, with greatness. It takes effort, and we're willing to put in that effort. And I think him and I relate on that level very well.
So the Joanna Connor album, that's coming out about a week from now. Obviously, she's been on the scene for a long time, but now it seems like with this album, she's really starting to get out to more people. What was the process kind of working with her on this album?
Yeah, Joanna is a wonderful person and a treasure. I first met Joanna when I was probably 13 years old. So yeah, she's been on the scene for a long time. I think I first played with her when I was 13 or 14 in Florida, where I grew up. I've always loved Joanna. She's a wonderful person and obviously incredible talent. who I never feel has reached the level she deserves, of recognition and respect. And she's worked so hard and paid her dues for so many years. Out there on the road, but also just in bars in Chicago. You could go for years to Kingston Mines and just know Joanna Connor was going to be there. She's paid her dues. So when Joe mentioned to me, "Hey, I want to produce a record for Joanna Connor," I don't think he even knew that I had known her from when I was a kid and that we had, not, I wouldn't say a relationship, but that we knew each other. And so I was immediately like on board. Like, that's a great idea. She deserves it. Because, he wanted it to be on his label. And that's a thing I don't know if people realize. Some of these projects that Joe and I are doing together are not on Joe's label. Joe's not paying for these. We're just being hired as producers, like Eric's record. Joe and I were just hired to produce the record. Joanna's record, we're basically funding and producing. Well, Joe's funding, and we're producing this record, and Joe's releasing it on his new label. So this was really something Joe wanted to do, was to help Joanna and get her where he felt she should be. And that was exciting. When he said that, it was like, yes, she's deserving. Let's do this, And then the focus pivoted to, okay, how do we best serve this artist and also get her to the level we want her to be at? Get her that recognition and get people to see how special she is. And to us, that was no filler. Make sure every moment on this record was the things that she does the greatest, which is play slide, sing her ass off, play with aggression, and play blues, really. We didn't, even though she plays a lot of different stuff in her live show, we wanted people to get this record and just go, wow, this is a real blues record and she's crushing it. And it couldn't be denied when they listened to it.
So I want to ask, because you said Joe and yourself, you're serious. And when you're in the studio, you want to get the work done. Something I've heard from some other people who have studios is that with the advent of a lot of digital recording, a lot of people are walking into studios ready to make a record, but they're just sort of messing around. Do you find that that is something that is one of maybe the negatives that has come through the new technology? And when that happens, if it happens to you, because it's clearly not happening with Joe Connor, if that happens to you, how do you deal with people who come into the studio who just aren't ready?
I'm hesitant to say it's a negative, but it can be if you let it be a negative. Because you have, tape is free. It's hard drive space is nothing. You can record 8 billion takes. You can experiment. That's great. The time is a wonderful thing sometimes, to have the ability to try things. Think back over the years in the 70s and 80s when bands had unlimited budgets. Some of that leads to excess and a bunch of crap, but also some of it leads to brilliance. The ability to spend a week on a song or 2 weeks and get the right sounds. It was excessive, but also it sometimes leads to great things. We don't have that ability anymore, like in the budget world, but we do have it in the time world because of, like you said, the advent of digital recording and the home studio and all that. That being said, option overload is a bad thing because it can hold you back from making decisions. And I think that's where Joe and I really align our philosophies. I like to make decisions and commit quickly. I know whether something's good or not, at least in my opinion. It doesn't mean everybody else is going to like it, but I know right away, yes, this is good, I like it, or no, I do not like it. And I'm not afraid to say that and quickly move on. Okay, yeah, we've got that. Let's go to the next. Or we don't have that. That wasn't good enough. Let's do it again. And I think that's mostly the way that we work quickly is by being decisive. And that is something that you had back when you were using tape machines and things like that. You made decisions much quicker because you were kind of forced to. You didn't have a gazillion options. I do like that.
And we mentioned you producing Eric Gale's album along with Joe. The fact that all three of you guys go back a long ways, you guys are all pretty tight. How much does that help to kind of, I guess, push the right buttons then in the studio with Eric?
It helps a little bit. I think mostly it helps with Eric. Eric is such a gifted musician. Everybody knows this. You can watch 30 seconds of him playing. and realize how special he is. But I think Eric knows in the room with Joe and myself that he's sitting with peers at least. So, we're not going to bullshit him. If we tell him that wasn't cutting it, he knows we mean it. We're not just going to blow smoke up his ass like I think a lot of people have, because the playing is whatever. It's second nature. You're going to get great guitar with Eric Gales. That's always been easy. That's the easy part. So we were more focused on getting the best songs he's ever had on a record, the best production he's ever had on a record, best arrangement, best sound, the best singing. That was the biggest one. Like, we were going to push him hard to sing the best he's ever had, put in the effort that we felt was necessary to make this the best Eric Gales record. Because again, the guitar playing that's easy with Eric Gales. That's easy to get great guitar playing. So he trusted us on that regard, because I think he knows, we've put in the work the same as him. And so he was willing to listen to our opinions, which is always the first hurdle you have to cross between producer and artist, is do they trust that you have their best intentions at heart, and, that you're trying to do right by them. And so once you cross that bridge, you're in a good way. And yeah, so Eric, it was easier because we relate on a peer level as musicians and guitar players, so he can trust us. And like I said, because we were very focused, I think Eric's record is the hardest. I don't like speaking for Joe, but he said it. I know it's the most effort we've put into a record, probably ever. And it's not our record, his record, it's Eric's record, but we just were very invested in making this as good as possible, because number one, we love Eric. And we selfishly, at least me, I selfishly, there's a record I've wanted Eric Gales to make for 20 years that I've been waiting for, because I knew it was in there. And I wanted it, I wanted better songs, better singing. I wanted a little more focus and direction. I wanted only the best, I wanted people to be able to put this on, just like I was saying with Joanna, and just go, holy cow, the Kiss can't be denied. So that was the goal there.
So in your mind, Josh, what do you think makes a great guitar player?
What makes a great guitar player? Man, that's a very difficult question to answer, because if we're talking about the blues has so many variables that are completely intangible, that are, you start talking about these esoteric things like heart and soul and, vibe and feeling. And it's such an important part of the blues that can't be taught, and I struggle sometimes with explaining this to people. I hate talking about it in regards to my own playing. Nobody wants to say I'm soulful or I'm this or I'm that. But if you play the blues, there's something about it that has drawn you to this music. It's, the simplicity, the directness of this music, the improvisational nature of the music, but mostly it's just the way you feel it. I can still remember, being a 5-year-old boy and hearing Albert King and B.B. King and feeling it. For some reason, it connected with me, and it was something special. And so for me, I'm always tapping into that well. So in the blues world, you need that. But the rest of it, I think, is how much work are you willing to put in? And this comes down to the old, God-given gift versus hard work thing. Do I think people are given a gift? Sure. Do I think I was meant to play guitar? Yeah, probably. I'm not a very spiritual guy. I don't think about, I was born to play guitar and it was given to me down by God and this and that. I don't think like that, But we all know people who we've seen who there's got to be some explanation for this guy. How does this exist in the world? It's like a natural faucet. This is magic, what's happening here. So we've all seen that. But the thing sometimes people don't understand, even about those people, is the other half of all the work that they've put in to hone that skill, to respect it. The fact that, okay, maybe I do have a natural gift for this instrument and it just feels right. But I have to now put in the work and respect the fact that I've been given this gift by putting in equal amounts of work and effort. And I think that's what makes a great, not just guitar player, but a musician, is the balance of the need to do it because you love it and it's what you kind of feel like you were meant to do in your heart, and then the willingness to work and get as good as you can at it and put in the time and the effort, respect it. I think that's what makes a great musician.
So going to that, so forget the technical parts of it. To what you just said, was there someone as you were growing up, he or she, who you looked at and said, that is how you do it. That is how you put in the time. This is the type of professionalism, the type of mastery and dedication that I want to aspire to. Not talking playing, but just the approach, the seriousness and the love and the dedication. Was there someone that you had that you pinned?
Well, there were people, like local people who I saw working hard, who were serious professionals, with gifts. And I'm always making note of that. And I think guys don't give enough credit to not just their heroes, but also those weekend warriors and local musicians that they grow up around, who give them pieces of advice, hire them for their first gig. So there were a lot of gentlemen like that, adults, who were kind to me as a kid and kind of showed me the ropes and showed me what it meant to be, like you said, a serious professional. But then also from afar, you kind of know when you look at people, even on video, even as heroes, okay, there's something there that this is almost life or death for them. Like when I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan play live at the El Macambo video, it was a bootleg version before it was released, and I knew, like, okay, he would do this if there was nobody in that audience. He would do this. He has to do this. That's the way it feels for me. And it was like, okay, I get it. A big thing for me, I'm a huge fan of a guy named Kenny Garrett, who's an alto saxophone player, jazz musician. He's one of my most favorite improvisers in the world, and I've seen him a lot of times. I always would go to see him in Florida as a kid when he would come to town, and then I'd see him whenever, even now as an adult. I see him in LA a lot of times. And I remember once he was playing, he had an unbelievable band, and he was playing, and I don't think he was having a good night, just personally. You could tell he didn't like the sound on stage. It was one of those nights that wasn't vibing for him, He was kind of angry on stage, and it was a great show. He played his ass off, but the set ended, and he just walked right off stage and went backstage, which was just around the corner. It was a little jazz club, right? But then backstage, he proceeded to play his brains out for 25 or 30 more minutes straight, while people were paying their bills and talking to the other musicians and leaving. He's back there going blah, 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 loud. And it was like, whoa. I remember vividly thinking he's working it out because he was pissed off and he had to get this out of his system. And he just kept playing. And it was, I remember that, like, wow. It's so important to him how it goes on stage, the music, the playing, that he's got to get this out because he didn't get it out during the gig. That doesn't mean it's over for him. He still has to do the job. And that was inspiring to me.
Josh, for someone who wants to play music and guitar professionally, especially in today's digital age, do you have any advice for them who want to make a career out of it?
Unfortunately, the number one piece of advice isn't really possible right now, and that's take every gig you can possibly take. Play with your friend who's a singer-songwriter at her, open mic. Take a bar mitzvah gig. Take a wedding gig. Take every gig you possibly can, playing music you don't care about, music you've never bothered to learn. Learn the ropes. This is the way that you become a professional. This is how you learn that your guitar is not intonated properly, or that you've never changed your tubes, and you don't know that your amp's reliable, or all these types of things only come from practical real world experience, playing as much diverse music as you want, as you can, and in diverse situations. That's the number one piece of advice. If you just want to be a great guitar player and a great musician, obviously you got to just play as much as you can. There's no substitute for physical time playing the instrument, sitting there working on something, practicing, and don't get caught up in this digital, world where you need a perfect minute of guitar playing to put on Instagram. That's a trap, and we all succumb to this trap, because especially now, like we were talking about earlier, you don't have the instant gratification of a crowd to play for. So you're waiting on the likes and the comments. So we all want to make this perfect minute that we think is going to get the best, reaction. It's a real trap. Don't fall into that trap. Just play because you love it and share it because you feel like sharing it, and the rest kind of take care of itself.
Josh?
Well, Josh, this has been great. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, thank you for having me, and appreciate everybody, for supporting the things that I do. Look out for Joanna's new record. Look for Eric's record later in the year. I'll have a new record later this year.
Nice.
Just thanks for supporting us during these difficult times. We wish we were playing gigs for you.
Yeah, we
Thank
can't
you.
wait till you're playing gigs for us again.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Blues Rock Show. For Willie Witten and Josh Smith, I'm Pete Francis. We'll see you next time.